Hi guys, Peter Finch here, and I'm down here with putting specialist, all-round nice chap, and very good with his time, Andy Gorman. How you doing, buddy? Okay.
Thanks, Pete.
So we're down here at Andy's studio down at Wishaw Golf Club in the Midlands, and we've already done quite a few videos already, so please check those out. But now we're going to be talking about the mental approach that you can be having to putting, and how that links into practice, how it links into some physical aspects as well, and maybe not just narrowing it down to just, say, thinking correctly about putting and all the rest of it. There are lots of different parts to this that maybe you might not have touched on before. Now, Andy's worked with tour players, he's worked with countless kind of golfers from every kind of level, every standard. So, you know, Andy knows a lot about this. So it's really good to kind of pick his brain and to let you guys know exactly what you should be doing as well. So if we talk about, first of all, a poor mental approach to putting. So let's start with kind of amateurs and then kind of move on to pros. But what have you seen? What have you seen through your experience? What would you class as a poor approach mentally to putting? Is it kind of a lack of confidence? Is it a lack of thinking correctly?
Yeah, it is a lack of confidence. And the confidence comes from poor results or good results. So, you know, the crazy thing is, without us going through a complete sort of psychology session, and really I don't want us to go down that route, you know, it's the gain a mindset that is reasonable to what we're trying to achieve. We do know that the task at hand, given that the putts could be flat, could be uphill, could be downhill, could have some slope on them, the target at the end of the day is 4¼ inches or 108 millimetres. You know, so it's not a very big target. It's not like standing on the tee and you've got something 40 yards wide to hit into with short grass and another 20 yards either side before the trees start to kick in. I mean, you know, we're talking about a very challenging task, let alone whether or not the ball's going to slope, you know, and move, you know, from a standard straight line. So it is a tough task, but, you know, the approach, can I roll the ball towards a target that I've intended, will help to change your mindset. If we are struggling to hole putts, then at least can I move the ball towards the hole? That's a positive. And, you know, the brain works on positive stimulus. It doesn't work on negative. It turns everything negative into a positive. So, you know, essentially what I'm saying there is, if you believe you're going to miss the putt, guess what? You're going to miss the putt. You are going to miss it. And we've all stood over a putt at some point. Even beginners have told me this, that I knew I was going to hole it. And at the same time, we've all stood over a putt and knew we were going to miss it, and guess what? We did. So it's kind of getting in that mindset more of standing over a putt and kind of knowing you're going to hole it, even if you might not do. You know, the stats, you know, when you get outside kind of 10 feet or so, the stats are going to be against you that you're not going to hole it, no matter how well you actually hit the stroke. So we need to get in that mindset more about, I am going to hole it. Now, you said something quite interesting just before this about how physically and how you kind of get set up to your putts, that can affect your kind of mental approach and how you practice as well. Now, what did you mean by that? Because you spoke about kind of tour pros doing that as well. One of the interesting things for me, I've said this for a number of years now, is that I can stand on a practice ground at a tour event and watch athletes, and, you know, with a large degree, I'd say 90% of the guys you'd see, you know, would look pretty good down the beach. You know, we do have down the beach bodies. Yeah, they are good athletes these days, and they can stand out on the range and hit golf balls swinging the driver at 115, 120 mile an hour for hours. And they literally just come out onto the putting green, and after a couple of minutes bent over a putter, you see this? And I really struggle. That's telling you something, you know, it's telling you something physically that, oh, this posture bent over a relatively short putter is just not good. And, you know, if your body can tell you that on the putting green, and why we don't think about it more often, I really don't know. And this is something which is really, really good, because it's not something that you normally think about, because you think about mental approach to putting being purely a mental exercise. But if you don't have the correct posture, the correct setup, you're not going to be able to practice enough to have that confidence. So it all kind of feeds back and it does. Leads in. You know, it's one of the things that I get from elite players, understand it. Look, if you want to improve at putting, you're going to have to practice. So, you know, we talked about this earlier, didn't we? You know, with as much time as we could throw at practicing putting, if we could stand over a putter long enough to do it, then that would be great. And if we had the time and we could afford to do it, that would be also great. And if you're a tour player, you're going to have to find the time because it's your job. And we kind of have to do that. But oftentimes we can't because of the way we try and go about it. The other thing is that, typically somebody who's really downbeat, life's throwing a bit of a curveball and, they don't walk around, sort of happy and proud.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. And I don't see many good putters setting up like this.
No.
I really don't see many guys who are having 26, 27, 28 putts with such poor posture and walking off the putting green as if, I'll go to another tee and find another, I think we can relate.
I'm pretty sure everyone can just relate to that. I'm pretty sure everyone can relate to that.
Whereas if to be positive, generally speaking, we're not ashamed of, being a little proud of, who we are and what we do. And, good posture when we stand and talk, is also really important when we stand over a putter. We don't want to be like this because it's just not going to work very well.
So we've got, so far, standing over a putt and almost kind of forcing yourself to believe that you are going to hold it and you knew that you were going to hold that. And actually taking that to every putt, regardless of what's actually happening. So every putt you think that, every putt you think that. Getting set up right and posture right physically to get yourself in a position where you can practice for actually decent kind of periods of time. And then maintaining that positivity in your posture no matter kind of what's happening anyway. Now, we're going to do kind of videos on kind of technique and all the rest of it, so please stay tuned for those. But as far as a mental approach to actually putting, so you're on a hole, you've got a lovely approach here, has to be said.
It's not bad.
And we are over this putt. Now, when we're talking about things like routine and how you're actually thinking through a putt, just talk me through a little bit more about what you'd be doing.
Yeah, I think one of the big challenges, from a coaching point of view, is when we look at the difference between an elite player and a weekend warrior who turns up every weekend, normally like this to the first tee and has a flash at it because breakfast was tastier.
Just put your hands up.
Or the pillow was even nicer. But essentially, is to go into routine, and we don't see that with the weekend warrior. Routine is really important because it's a consistent factor, and if we can go through real simple factors like we've literally hit a good shot, and I've primed the golf ball. I've already chosen where I'm going to aim. I'm going to aim just on the left edge of the hole because the break on the putt is that.
And just with that as well, you just mentioned before about picking the line and actually picking the line and believing the line. Even if you're not 100% sure, getting that line and then saying, that is the line. Because that will breed confidence into their actual stuff.
It will, and I can tell you now that I've stood over plenty of putts knowing that I wasn't aiming it correctly and still pulled the trigger and missed. Why did I do it?
Well,
but we've all done it.
Everyone goes through the same.
I think a lot of the time is because there's
people behind, and
we don't want to reline it back up, and that is one of the excuses I get a lot from good golfers and not so good golfers about lining the ball up. I keep choosing the wrong one, and it takes a long time to line it up. But if you get used to it, it's like you're walking down the fairway and you look at 150 yards and say, it's an 8 or a 7 iron or whatever it might be. You go straight away. You don't think about it after a while. But yes, getting into a routine, lining the putter up, lining the ball up to the chosen line, being able to take that marker away and put it in your pocket and say, I'm just going to aim where I've just lined the ball up, and I'm just going to set my putter up to the ball and then my body up to the putter and then just pull the trigger. So I'm not thinking about a lot when I stand over the putt.
So feel like you're a little bit more reactive to the putt, that kind of feel.
Totally instinctive. I'm literally just, I've chosen my line. Even if it's the wrong one, I don't care at this point because that's the one I'm going to hit it on. I'm not going to know whether it's the wrong one until I've hit it. Because it's not like I'm on the practice green, and we have set this up and we stage it. Of course I know, what my studio does, I hope. you know, pressure's on. You need to win the Open, or qualify for it, the Quest. But essentially, I've chosen a line that I believe is the one that's going to get the ball to the hole. So once I've chosen that line, and I do everything in my power now to aim down that line with the putter and set my body up to it, and I use a Seymour putter so I can make sure my rifle scope technology is good. All right, I've got everything dotted, all the I's and crossed the T's. This is just about hitting it at the right pace. And providing I've done only one thing, which is hit it at the right pace, because I didn't choose the right line, I actually hit it really well. I didn't put enough brake on it. That's typical. But at the end of the day, I can say, you know what, I rolled that really well.
I think that is probably one of the most important things I've certainly found, kind of people I've kind of coached, is when they're lining a put up, they pick their line, as long as they can walk off that green saying, I put a good stroke on that, and I hit that stroke confidently, you can still class that as a good putt. Even if it didn't go in, that is a good putt.
You know, I can walk away from there little disappointed that I've hit a good shot and I've actually hit a good putt and I've missed it by just the right edge of the hole. But I can confidently know it had nothing to do with my stroke. It had only to do with my aim, which is something that I did just before we set the cameras rolling. And so I can blame the aim, but I've hit it at a good pace. That's just the perfect pace I want to hit it. It's about a foot past the hole. I've put such a pure roll on it, so I know that I've done everything I can do physically during the stroke and walk off the green, although slightly disappointed, and this is probably better than if I'd hold it, because I think you'd have expected me to hold it. I can turn a negative, I've missed a putt, into a positive when I walk off the green.
So you've hit a good putt.
I've hit a good putt. And that's the key, that I've hit a good putt, I've chosen the wrong aim. And so I could have aimed a ball further left and the ball would have gone in. I could have aimed 2 balls further left actually and it would have gone in. But essentially, I now know that I go to the next tee not looking for a new, you know, I've got to change my grip and I've got to, you know, move the ball position, which we all see too often as coaches, we see it all the time. That I'm confident that I can roll the ball where I aim it, I've just got to choose a better aim. And we can miss aim, you know, like that. We can get a pretty good idea where to aim and get it right most of the time, but actually, you know, it's very easy to miss aim, but actually it's a lot easier to hit the ball where you want to hit it. Absolutely. Once you've got a good routine.
Absolutely. Right. That is absolutely fantastic. Andy, thank you kind of so much for that.
Pleasure.
Hopefully that's give you a little bit of an insight into kind of what you should be thinking about, maybe give you a little bit of insight into what you are thinking now as well, maybe a little bit as well. But I mean, the whole process and the whole kind of theories around what you should be thinking while you're putting is absolutely exhaustive, but hopefully this will give you a little bit of an insight into what you should be doing and maybe some things that you want. Right, thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, comment below, go into the description below. Andy's links are all in there for his website and his fantastic studio down here as well. So guys, thanks for watching. Andy, thank you very much, and stay tuned, lots more videos to come.